Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Outgrow's Marketer of the Month. I'm your host, Dr. Saksham Sharda. I'm the creative director at Outgrow.co. And for this episode, we'll be speaking with Corey Haines, who's the founder of SwipeFiles.com. Thanks for joining us, Corey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
So, Corey, we're going to start with a rapid fire round just to break the ice. You get 3 passes. In case you don't want to answer a question, you can just say pass, but try to keep your answers to one word or one sentence only, okay?
Sure.
All right, so the first one. Give us a film that you really love.
Jurassic Park.
A concert you'll never forget.
I've only been to a few, so I'd have to say my first one, seeing One Republic.
What's your favorite meal?
Oh man, I love a good ravioli.
What's on your nightstand right now?
My Kindle.
Give us a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that brings you great joy.
My wife and I have a little kind of habit and routine with our dog where we go and grab coffee together. We live sort of near downtown area, so we like to go and grab a coffee, take the dog for a walk, and it's always a good part of our day.
What's your favorite carb? Bread, pasta, rice, or potatoes?
Definitely pasta.
What does the acronym SCUBA stand for?
Scuba? Oh, geez.
Like in scuba diver.
Sometimes coming under buoyant. I have no idea. Yeah.
That was a great try. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
1.
If everyone in the world had to get married when they reached a certain age, what would that age be?
23.
Favorite type of muffin?
Blueberry.
And the last question is your favorite Netflix show?
Ooh, that's difficult because Netflix changes the shows all the time. But right now, my wife and I are loving Love on the Spectrum.
Okay, all right. All right, let's go on to the bigger questions. The first one is, so would it be safe to say a swipe file is a digital or physical folder in which you keep all of the brilliant marketing ideas you've come across over the years?
Yeah, you hit it right in the head. It's sort of this industry jargon, this word that we've made up to describe what designers would call a mood board, or what note takers would call maybe a commonplace book or Zettelkasten. But yeah, a swipe file is really just it's sort of our innate desire to imitate and to learn by seeing what other people do, and basically to follow by example. And so in marketing, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. All you need to do is sort of infer and deduce based on what's already working out there. So by collecting a swipe file and by looking at all these different examples, you can speed up your workflow. You can work from best practices. You can really get better results quicker just by not having to reinvent everything yourself from scratch and trying to kind of come from first principles. Just use what's already out there and remix it. There's an old quote that everything's a remix and there's nothing new under the sun, right? And so it's the same for marketing, right? Why should we always try to be original and authentic? It doesn't really exist.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come up with this idea, and when did you come up with it, and what are the competitors to you look like?
Yeah, the idea really came from my own struggles trying to keep a swipe file. So with SwipeWell, it's the SaaS that we created. I also have a site called Swipe Files. That was originally what I was doing was I was writing these kind of in-depth commentary teardowns on good marketing examples that I would see out there. So basically break down step by step. Here's what I like about this marketing example and what you can learn from it. So when I first started Swipe Files, I think I wrote about 40 in a row every week. And so I was just looking at different landing pages, ads, emails, breaking them down, publishing the teardowns. And what people kept asking me for was, hey, do you just have like a swipe file that I can subscribe to or that you can share with me that just has like all these examples? And so because I became known for being like the swipe file guy, all the time people are like, hey, I'm coming with a, you know, reactivation email from my e-commerce store. Do you have any good examples that you've seen? I'm like, oh, geez, let me like go look through my swipe file. Oops, it's like impossible to find things because it's just like a Google Drive or it's a folder on my desktop, and or there's a label in my Gmail. So everything's in different places and it's really hard to search and filter. So when we started Swipewell, the thought was really just to have a single place for your swipe file. It has all the different components that you'd need across saving landing pages, ads, emails, screenshots, billboards, whatever you can basically pull a file, you can save it into your swipe file there. And then you can tag it and organize it in a way that you can actually find it. So you can actually use your swipe file later, because myself included, but a lot of people I talk to, they say, "Yeah, I have a swipe file, but I don't really use it or reference it because it's impossible to find anything useful based on what I'm looking for." So, anyways, that kind of validated the idea for the software, which ended up helping us build Swipewell, which is going very well, and people, are actually using. We're seeing in the data, people are actually using the swipe file finally.
So, what all this implies also is that inbound marketing itself necessitates ongoing maintenance to ensure that content is always relevant to customers' changing wants and needs. So, is there like a holistic strategy that can assist in meeting this evolving demand?
Hmm. I think for building a spy file and just for keeping up with marketing in general, it's really important to keep tabs on yourself first and foremost. What do you see yourself changing behaviors? What do you see yourself gravitating towards? What do you see yourself responding to? What catches your attention? What do you find interesting? What are you noticing in the trends that other people are responding to? The really difficult thing about marketing is that no one wants to share the secrets about what works until about a year later. And then you have all the thought leaders and all these people publishing these case studies about a new innovative tactic. But if you really want to be cutting edge, you want to be on the frontier of what's really working, you have to be doing it yourself. You have to be inventing it. Otherwise, you're just waiting for everyone else to publish the case study, and then you adopt it and try it for yourself. So you'll always be behind. And so for me, I always try to keep tabs on, what are the how are the algorithms changing? How are people using different social networks differently? Which ones are gaining popularity? Which ones are losing popularity? What are the different strategies that seem to be working, or which ones are now just table stakes? Because you take any channel, right? You take something like Google and SEO, and people have been talking about, oh, links are dead, links don't matter anymore. And for a while, you sort of like you put that off, and you're just like, okay, I'll just accept that, and I'll just push that to the side. And then you realize, nope, this is actually Google still uses this, and they probably always will use this as some sort of ranking factor. But what's really cutting edge is maybe something like dynamically testing the search titles that pop up in search results, to get a better click through rate if you're on the first page. And if you get a better click through rate, then you'll jump from maybe spot 5 to spot 2 or spot number 1, right? That's really cutting edge, but that takes someone to go and experiment and try that, and then again publish the case study. But you can do that. You can be the one sort of inventing that new tactic that can push the boundaries forward. Or you take channels like TikTok, right? I think a lot of people kind of just put it off, just thought, TikTok is for kids. Isn't that where people make videos of themselves dancing? No, it's actually evolved a lot. It has one of the most engaged and largest user bases in the world now. And there's a lot of people using it for a lot of other ways besides just dancing. In fact, you'll pretty much never see that if you actually create a TikTok account and you start scrolling through things, because their discovery feed is amazing, and it'll start learning from you. But you'll never see people dancing. Now it's a lot more storytelling. It's a lot more business advice. It's a lot more cool things people find. It's a lot of funny stuff, but it's a lot of really interesting things as well. So always keeping tabs on, oh, am I downloading TikTok right now? I should actually look at this, right? Or, what's up with the search result? I thought it looked different last week when I was looking at the same thing. Interesting. Maybe go look and see if I can look into Ahrefs and see history of changes in the search results. Things like that. If you're just paying attention to what you see in your own life, that can help you keep tabs with changing customer needs and dynamics and just where the industry is going as a whole.
And speaking of secrets that work that people don't reveal until a year later, what kind of content, in your opinion, do you think would solve lower funnel challenges?
So when we talk about lower funnel, what we're really talking about is I like to break it down to the 5 stages of awareness, which is basically the customer journey kind of broken down into a couple different stages of milestones that they hit with new information that they have to work with. And so at first you start with like unaware, which is basically someone doesn't know that they have a problem. They have no idea about your product and they're not even remotely thinking about what your product does. And then you have problem aware, then you have solution aware, product aware, and then sort of fully aware is like they're bought in, they're a fan, they've bought the product, et cetera, et cetera. So when we talk about lower funnel, what I more think about is like solution aware and product aware kind of stages in the customer journey. And at those stages, let's just take problem aware, or I'm sorry, product aware now. Um, they basically have a good lay of the land. They've looked at competitors. They've been doing their research. They know the things that they're supposed to be solving for pretty intimately well, and they know the potential solutions as well. They're just not sure which solution is going to be the winner, which one is going to most efficiently or check most of the boxes that they need, depending on their budget, their timeline, their use cases, et cetera, et cetera. So that type of content is inherently very product related. It's actually going to be very sales related because you're going to be saying, hey, here's how we compare to our competitor. Here's how we compare to this alternative way of doing things instead of building it yourself, instead of hiring someone to do this, instead of working with an agency. Use our tool, for example, right? So a lot of that content usually ends up being competitor comparison posts on that are publicly available on your website, and it ends up being even things like a sales call and a sales deck. It ends up being maybe a webinar. It ends up being a free trial for a product, or even just like a free version of a product that you can use on a freemium plan. Um, it depends, right? On the industry, it depends on the product, depends on what the customer is trying to do, but it's always related to the product and helping the customer make a decision on your product versus another product or alternative.
So, what would you think would be the key then to standing out as a SaaS brand in particular in a competitive market?
Well, the key to standing out, if you just think about what it means to stand out, right, is really just positioning. And positioning is really, really hard in SaaS in particular because software is a really complex type of product, right? It's not as simple as, um, well, this vacuum has this feature and this other vacuum has that feature, or if this car is powered by gas, this other car is powered by electric. uh, Software is super complex. It's about what's the price per seat or how much storage and does it have SSO and all the different feature sets and use cases that you need, the ways that your team would use it, permissions, reports. Like there's almost an endless amount of features and different dynamics to the product. And so positioning becomes really hard because how do you distill that, all that comparison, all that data, all of those stories and things that you can point to and say, we're better in this way? How do you distill that down into a singular message that will first get someone interested in the first place and just giving you the time of day to learn about you, but second, to actually make a decision to purchase your product and to subscribe or to sign the contract, depending on the pricing level? It's really, really, really hard. Personally, I'm a really big fan of April Dunford, and her book, obviously awesome. She basically has like a 5-step positioning exercise where she takes you through all the different things you need in order to discover your positioning, essentially. But I think it comes down to two things. I think it comes down to first having a hook because you're not going to be able to distill everything down into one message that just covers everything, that's exhaustive, that just makes it like fully click and people just hit subscribe right then and there. But you need something just to loop them in, to hook them in that says, hey, we do this thing over here differently. And it's not going to be the single thing that makes you go our way, choose our product, but it's going to be the single thing that gets you to give us a chance, give us a look, that leads you into all the other things that we can tell you about. For example, something like SavvyCal. One of my consulting clients, been working with Derek for a long time. We basically realized that the hook for the positioning of SavvyCal was this idea of giving people a calendar to book off of instead of a list of time slots. It's a completely different scheduling calendar paradigm. And people really like that, both from the scheduler experience of what they're handing to someone else to book a time with them, and on how you present it and how you organize your calendar as the schedulee. Um, I'll give you another example. Another tool I'm a really big fan of, Userlist. It's basically like an email automation tool for SaaS brands. They've gone through a couple of different positioning exercises, but lately they found a lot of traction with the hook of company level data or account level data, however you want to describe that. Basically, like multi-user account level data that you can use for email automations. So a lot of email automation tools are basically stuck in this old world of like one account is one user is one email address. But when you have companies subscribing to products, you might have 50 people on a single account. You don't want to treat them all as different companies. And you also don't want to just email one of those users and hope that it's the right user or the billing user, right? So they have this idea of account level, company level data that you can use for your email automations. So that's the hook, right? But that's not the entire thing. The second part of the equation is all the rest of it. That's the full positioning story. And that's basically going through who is this for? What are they trying to achieve? What are the ways that we can do things better than our competitors? And then how do we map those differentiators to value for the customer at the end of the day? And that's a really long, kind of exhaustive exercise. That's why I'm a really big fan of long, exhaustive landing pages, because that's what you need. Um, it's a complex buying process, and you can't just distill it down into something that can be said in 2 or 3 sentences. It normally ends up being, 10, 20, 30 sentences, right? And even then, that's kind of just scratching the surface. Then people are going to want to actually start a trial, right? Or get a demo or see it for themselves, right? But you have to hook people in, and then you have to back it up with, hey, they do this way, we do this other way. They do these things these ways, and we do these things these other ways, and it's better because, and you have something to say, right? I think what a lot of people mess up on the positioning side of things is they talk about features all day long, and that ends up just kind of getting washed out with industry jargon and technical terms that don't really matter, or people just overemphasize the benefits, and they say, we help you make more money. Well, how? With what, right? Every tool, every business should help you either make more money, save more money, or save time. And so if everyone just used benefit driven copy all the time, we'd all be saying the exact same things, and no one would have any idea what we actually did, right? So you have to map the features to the benefits. You have to talk about, here's what we do and here's how this helps you.
And in that case, what would be your standpoint on a positioning or marketing strategy surviving constant algorithm updates?
I mean, I don't think the two are related, to be honest. Maybe if you can extrapolate a little bit more on what you need, on what you mean,
Then
but
perhaps a marketing strategy is having to survive algorithm updates then.
yeah, sure. Um, I'm a believer that most of the kind of tried and true marketing strategies, like if you really have a foundationally sound marketing strategy, the tactics that you're using are all sort of what we call white hat. They're all ethical. They're all based on first principles, and they're all using basic marketing psychology about hooks and copywriting and ways to convert people. Uh, Good risk reversal, calls to action, urgency, you're showing all the right things, then it should be, in theory, pretty algorithm change resistant. I think what you see a lot of times in any algorithm change that messes someone's business up, like Google Core update or Twitter algorithm, Facebook algorithm, et cetera, is that people end up leaning too heavily in one tactic. They either built a bunch of backlinks that were illegitimate, just to kind of game the system, or they were using a certain type of post in Facebook that Facebook just decided one day that they didn't really like anymore. Maybe it was like video, or maybe it was podcast, and they just killed it overnight. Um, so I think the key is just to have a really foundationally strong marketing strategy. And if you do that, yeah, you might kind of get dinged by an algorithm update, or you might not get the exact same reach, but it's not just going to plummet overnight, right? Because you're diversified, and because what you're actually doing isn't over optimizing on something that could change at the whim of just, again, an algorithm update or some sort of change in the way that the social network works. So yeah, I'm a fan of just the basics, the fundamentals, keeping it really simple, keeping a white hat. I've never known anyone personally who just did things really basically and had good success get hit with some sort of massive downfall in reach, engagement, etc. It's always the kind of like gray hat slash growth hacky kind of tactics that get dinged the most.
And so when it does come to like producing content, what kind of a balance do you think a company should maintain between in-house and outsourced content?
Hmm. It's a little bit more of like whatever your business needs at the moment and whatever best fits your strategy to get the right content that you want. In some cases, you really need to build out a big in-house team that has a lot of expertise, that can lean on thought leaders within the company internally to kind of extract data points, opinions, case studies, things like that, that maybe it would be hard for an outside team to do. In other cases, an outside team might be a lot better at gathering quotes, interviewing influencers and thought leaders in the space, going out and just being really thorough, hiring people who have expertise or authority in the space that you don't and that the company can't provide themselves. And so it's a little bit more about what does the content need? What's the best way to get the best content that we possibly can? I'm a fan of hiring in-house, hiring freelancers, and hiring agencies. I know lots of great agencies. I know lots of great freelancers, and I know lots of great in-house content marketers and directors of content. They all have a little bit different strategies depending on the companies that they work for and the industry needs. For example, I think that kind of uh, businesses that sell to other businesses, especially startups that sell to other startups, it's a little bit easier to hire any one of those three because you're going to be doing a lot of like scraping, gathering, curating, and you usually don't need a lot of industry expertise. So anyone can do it, right? In-house, freelancer, agency, they're all going through the same thing. But let's just say you're working for a company like UiPath that works in robotics, automation, in manufacturing. Like you're not just going to be able to go and hire a freelancer or hire a in-house marketer to go and write that themselves. The freelancer would have to hire someone within the company. The in-house person would have to interview someone within the company, or the agency would need to go and hire a writer who has expertise in robotics, manufacturing, automation, right? I don't know which one of those paths is like gets you the fastest and the best content, but one of those probably will. It might not be the one that you thought originally, right? So it's more just about the industry, the needs, what gets you the best content.
Okay, and the last question for you is, what would you be doing in your life if not this?
Oh man. I'd probably go one of two different directions if it wasn't in software and marketing. I've always loved fighter jets, and this is not just because Top Gun came out, but I've always thought I would go if I had to go in the military, and I would have no problem going in the military. I would want to go in the Air Force, and I want to either fly fighter jets or helicopters. Um, if I wasn't doing that, I think that I would probably go into something like real estate and do some like flipping, investing, selling, something like that.
Okay, so real estate or fighter piloting. Okay.
Yep, I know, two
All right,
very similar things.
all right, thanks everyone for joining us for this month's episode of Outgrow's Market of the Month. That was Corey Haines, who's the founder of swipefiles.com. Thanks for joining us, Corey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Check out their website for more details, and we'll see you once again next month with another Marketer of the Month.